So let's join some of the paper roll tubes together. Let's take two to begin with and say, well, look, there's no point in joining them like that. You might need to, but there isn't really any point in joining them like that because you could just make a longer tube anyway. But you may want to do that in another instance. We'll come back to that another time. Let's do more interesting shapes by joining them in a corner or a right angle. Small pieces of tape, as we said, that's an ideal size piece of tape. And if you just get used to rubbing the tape on, if you can, rub the tape. So finger inside is useful for that one. And now this is the hard part. We're going to try and join them together nice and evenly. And of course you've got to squash them a bit to do it. So just start with a little piece of tape like that. Now that's all floppy and it would come apart. We need a piece on the other side as well. So let's turn it around. It's slightly longer, that one. Finger in and rub it. Gently pinch that one. So that's a bit better. You'll see that the bits of tape do stick up, and of course you're trying to make them go from one surface to another, and one's in a different plane. The curve sort of defeats the tape at these points here. Now that will eventually come loose, so it's a good idea to do this. Take another two pieces of tape, put one round the top that way, and do your best not to crush the whole thing, but rub it on best you can. And then put the other one round on the underside. There it goes. Fantastic. So there's our basic corner joint. And so the corner joint, you can imagine the frame for a door, a house, a roof, all sorts become possible when you start to do this. So here's one where I've got all four identical A5 tubes. So there's one corner, and then if we simply go all the way around the whole thing, we've created a frame. So now the frame, a freestanding frame is fabulous. You can make all sorts of lovely see-through three-dimensional shapes. If you had another frame, for example, and you end up making, you can make triangles if you wish. That's a bit more difficult, as you can see there. We'll come back to that one. And then you can even make complete sort of structures where you have got the frames all the way around. So really we should make maybe four frames. And if you make four frames, you can simply join them together. Or you could simply add to this frame. So let's add to the frame we've already got. Let's have a look. So what do we want to do? We want to put a sticky tape, a tube in that plane there. So it's the same as before. If you take a piece of tape and the corner where you're going to try and join it. There it is. So it's flopping all over the place, and it will do until we take another piece of tape and put that on the top. And in this instance, you can actually tuck the tape, inside. Now it is a bit fiddly, it's messy. You can pinch the tube without damaging it too much, but then do that thing where you wrap further tape all the way around it, and that strengthens it. And then you want to put a piece on the inside. Haven't made that one long enough. Let's just do that one. Sometimes folks would just take a very long piece of tape and try and wrap it round, but honestly that's a recipe for disaster. That one there is not very tidy, so let's just strengthen it and cover it over nice and neatly. So gradually, as you build up tube by tube all the way around, you're starting to build up a proper three-dimensional structure, which of course could form a shelter. You can even look at making maybe angled parts. So that's a right angle there, look, just like these corners. But then these two have been popped in so that they sit inside the tube like that. It'd be fun, wouldn't it, making structures whereby you had a sort of conventional house shape, or others where maybe you point them towards the very centre. So the variation in shapes that you can make is it's unending, and it just depends on what the imagination is of the children themselves. So the basics of joining the tubes together: by the time you've added more and more tubes and linked them to make it three-dimensional, it stops it from flopping around like this one is, and strengthens it every time you add a new tube to the same tube that you've already got there. So as you gradually build the tubes up, then link them to each other, the whole structure takes on a new sort of strength that it didn't have before. So best of luck with that. I suggest you make some frames, maybe several of these frames first. That's a good bit of practice. But then look at taking two frames and joining them together. So for example, frame, and then another frame above it, and then 4 tubes to link between the 2 frames. So that's a challenge for next time.